The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And I have the beginnings of a migraine, thank you to one very particular person at my son's school. How about you? That's how we're going to start today's show. I'm going to maintain a sense of humor about it. But just keeping it real, right? It's Friday, and sometimes we just have, like, events, right? I'm not going to talk any more about it because we're going to keep it all positive and on the up and up and have a sense of humor. Right? This is Friday, very exciting. We have started our holiday giveaway. And so I want to go over some of the rules because there's a little bit of confusion out there that every hour that the show is live between now and when we go off the air on December 20th, on Friday, December 20th, every hour we're going to give something away. Now, there are very specific things that you need to do to be able to win. At some point during the hour, Emily, I don't know what the word or the phrase is, but Emily will flash onto the screen a word or a phrase. You will need to write that down. You will need to email it to this address that Emily is going to put on the screen. If you send it on the live feature, it doesn't count. It has to be emailed to this address. And in your subject line, put what the gift was that we talked about at the start of the hour that we were going to give away. You must know what the gift is for the hour, and you must know what the phrase or whatever that appears on the screen is. Send that off to Emily, and of the correct responses, she will pick one, and that, or however many we have to give away during that hour, because some hours we have multiple things to give away. That was certainly true yesterday. And we will notify the next morning. You have until 7 o'clock Pacific time the next morning. So if you're not watching the shows live, that's okay. You can watch it when it posts a little bit later on and go through and watch and see what the word is and get it into us, but it has to get to us by 7 a.m. Pacific time. Of the correct responses that come in the right time, in the right manner, Emily will pick one at random and she will notify who has won. So yesterday we had some amazing gifts to give away. In the first hour, there was that lovely gift set it was called the Jolly Holiday gift set from Lush Cosmetics. We want to thank Lush Topanga for giving us that beautiful box, and Brittany Bima for being here to give that away. And then in the second hour, we gave a total of 6 e-learnings away that were specifically designed for teachers, 2 in each package. So 3 people were the winners of those e-learnings. So that was what we gave away yesterday. So in this first hour this morning, what we're giving away is another $25 gift card to Walmart. How fabulous is this? Because this is something that, we can all find something to buy at Walmart, correct? But it's also a great gift to give somebody else, perfect for anybody on your list. You can give this to a child that is on your list. You can give it to a teenager who's on your list. You can give this to a teacher and have them be thrilled with that, to an OT, a speech and language pathologist. So anybody on your list, perfect gift, a $25 gift card. So that is from Walmart, and we want to thank the Walmart in Canyon Country for donating that. And at some point during this hour, you'll see a word on the screen, and you'll want to make sure that you write that down so that you can note it and send it in to us. Make sure that you send it to that email address. Now, having said all of that, I want to remind all of you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We talk about autism. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. Everything that comes into play, what it costs to fund your autism program, what it costs to emotionally fund your autism program, right? And how we need to support each other to be able to see the kind of progress that we want to see. Whether you yourself are the person who's on the autism spectrum, or you're working with a child because you're a teacher, or you're a practitioner, or you're a parent, and you have a child who's on the autism spectrum and you want them to reach their full potential, we know how important it is to get the help and support that you need and to give you the tools. So we want to be here as a resource to kind of plug you in. You can feel free to write in, ask questions. The show is interactive. Emily's going to go through some of the different ways that you can connect with us here on the show. There are many different ways. I'm going to remind you that one great way to connect with us is by going to www.autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a computer screen. Click the little arrow on the computer screen and it starts to play the live show or the most recently recorded live show. And you can scroll through and see some of those different shows. But to the side, there's this long white rectangular box. That is the live feature. Put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and it shows up on our screen. That is now open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So no matter when you're watching, you can type in, hey, I want to have more information about this. The great thing is it's free and you do not have to log in. You don't have to, there's no credit card asking for information or your email address, none of that. It's completely anonymous. The bad side of that is that we don't know who you are. We don't know where you are. We don't know how to get a hold of you. So if you write in and say, I need more information about what she's talking about, first of all, reference who she is, because I don't know which episode you're watching. And I don't know how to get back a hold of you. So I can talk to you on the live show and hopefully you'll tune in to see that. But if you want us to specifically get back to you about something, you give us something that will help us to be able to do that. We won't show it to the other folks at home. We will keep that private, right? So definitely let us know if you want us to get back to you. Otherwise, enjoy the anonymity of it. And I think sometimes that's just, you want to ask a question and you don't want everybody to know where the question's coming from. I get that. Believe me, I understand that. Which brings me to my next thing. I always like to remind you guys at the start of the show that I am not an expert in autism. And that's apparent on a daily basis, isn't it? And I said a parent because that is what I am. I am a parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now 10, and he is just doing so well. And I'm so grateful for that. But the reason why he's doing well is because I had help. I had help and I had support, and I had people who helped us to figure out how to do the funding so that we could get access to ABA, how to walk through all the different steps. I still have people helping me, and we all should. This is a community in which we have to hold hands and support each other. And when you when you don't have the information, you have to ask, and you ask somebody who's a little bit further down the road, and they'll be happy to give it to you. And then when you get the information, then you pay it forward. And ladies and gentlemen, that is why I am here, is to pay forward the information that I've gotten. I care about all of our kids just like I know you do. And if we can support you, and if I can support you in any way to save you even 5 minutes or $5, heaven knows, that's sort of my mantra in the morning. You know, I may not know much, but if I can save you 5 minutes and $5 today, or lift you up and let you know that you're doing a great job and it's going to be okay and it's all going to come out okay, then hey, that's a well-spent morning for me, right? So, and it is all going to be okay. I forget that myself sometimes, but it's all going to be okay, and we're going to stick together. I always say, si se puede, we can do this. Together we can do this. So, having said all of that, the great exciting show today, and we want to start it with the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it within the context of autism. Why does this word apply to us or to our kids or to our students, and how can it help us to get to more progress? Okay, so today's term is false belief. Okay, and we always give you an actual definition and then we give you a working definition. Today's actual definition isn't too bad. So the actual definition for false belief is a misconception resulting from incorrect reasoning. And okay, I kind of know what a false belief is, right? Let's go to our working definition. This is thinking something is true based on misleading information. And what does this have to do with autism? What does this have to do with our kids on the spectrum? Well, as we're teaching cognition and getting ready for executive functioning, there's a lot of different steps along the way. And we're going to teach kids about knowing something. That, if I'm going to label something and I say this is a pen, and I teach the child expressively to say, when I say what is this, and they say it's a pen, and I'm going to teach them receptively to understand it. I say, what is this? And I say, this is a pen, and that they're understanding that what a pen is, okay? So I might say, give me the pen, and the fact that they're able to pick it up amongst a bunch of other things on the table and put it, then I know they understand that this is a pen from those two perspectives. But eventually, we're going to need to get into some topics with the child as we get into higher, more critical thinking things that are going to help with cognition. And so we're going to talk about knowing that something is a pen, right? Versus believing that something is a pen. And when we get into knowing versus believing, at some point, we're going to talk about false beliefs, because a lot of our kids and young adults and adults on the autism spectrum, this is an area that they will struggle with. Because when you get into gray reasoning, stuff that isn't black and white, it's hard. So we talked yesterday about sensory perspective, taking in information and viewing it from what can I see, what can I hear, what can I taste, what can I feel, all of those different things, right? And we're going to start to talk about knowing. How do I know that this is a pen? Ooh, right? It gets a little crazier. But on top of that, we want to be able for a child to begin to realize that things are not always what they appear to be. What if this were a pen that it's in a pen case, right? But if I push this little thing, it squirted water, right? It was a trick pen. Then I would have this belief that this was a pen, but it might be false. In this case, it's an actual pen, right? But how do you teach kids to understand not to just look at something at face value, and to understand that sometimes they believe one thing and somebody else believes something different? Ooh, again, we get into that, wow, this is harder to teach. Well, you can start to teach it with really concrete things. And again, like we were talking about yesterday, some of these things, when you're teaching them, they're fun. These are fun games that anybody could play on a rainy day. They just happen to be really good for our kids on the autism spectrum. Assuming that they've gotten a bunch of other prerequisites out of the way and they know what knowing is, right? Then we move into the area of doing the false belief games. So you might take their favorite board game, right? That comes in that great box and it's got all the little pieces in it, right? And they're used to, how many times have they opened up that board game, Candyland or whatever it is, they've opened it up and they've taken the pieces out, and so they look at the box and they go, well, I know what's in that box, right? It's that game. And what we do is we play some tricks. We take those things out of the box and we put a stuffed animal in there. So we take the box and we put it on the table and say, do you want to play with this? And the child says, yes. Do you know what's in there? Yes. How do you know what's in there? Because on the box, it says that that's the cornered game from Endless Games. Okay, but open it up and they see the stuffed animal. That's a false belief. You believed that it was the Endless Game cornered. Great game. We're going to be talking about that on Tuesday. You believed that it was that game because it's in the box, right? And normally the cornered game would be in the box, but just because normally it would be doesn't mean it always is. And you make connections in the child's brain so that they begin to realize that just because it says it on the box doesn't mean that that's what's inside. And we can take that information and put it into lots of different lessons so that eventually they get to the point where just because somebody says it is doesn't mean that it is. And just because the internet says that it is doesn't mean that it is, right? And that just because your friend, one of the early things that I remember was one of the little boys that my son played with when they turned 5, and my son was very huggy and he liked to hug all of his friends. And as he got older, we said, you're not allowed to hug your friends unless you ask them first. And nobody can hug you without asking you for permission first either, right? It was on his list of things to do that we, added in. And I remember the day that his little friend came to the house and Jem said to him, "Can I hug you?" And he said, "No. My dad said that boys don't hug each other." And, so this little boy believed this. This was, his dad said it, so it was how it was. But my son, who saw things in very black and white, came to me and he said, "Is that true? Boys don't hug each other?" And that's not my personal belief. That's not the value system that I want for my child. And I had a base on which to talk about that, about, people have different beliefs and those beliefs are important to them. And some things we know and some things are an opinion, and this is an opinion. So that's true for this little boy, and for his dad, it's not true for you. And he was so relieved. He was like, "Oh, okay. So that's his opinion." So, but the false belief lessons were the cornerstone of getting to the point where we could separate fact from opinion. My son is in 5th grade now, and he just came home recently with homework that I found fascinating, because here he is in 5th grade, 10 years old, and it was sorting out on a sheet of paper. He had to determine what was fact and what was opinion. And apparently a lot of the other kids in the class in 5th grade, 10-year-olds, were struggling with it. And my son was like, "No, that's an opinion, that's an opinion, that's a fact, that's a fact." And maybe one of them he had wrong, and we were able to talk about it and say, what's the important word in here that let you know that was an opinion, not a fact. Great set of lessons, and especially around the holidays when things are in boxes, and you can shake and listen and say, "I think it's this, but do I know if it's a great time to be working on these kinds of lessons?" So false beliefs, just one of the things that we work on with our kids. Lots of prerequisites that come first, but eventually we get to the point where we can take on false beliefs. And by the way, if you're looking for where would I find these lessons, where would I get, they're all available in Skills, and you can always get a free trial of Skills. Go to skillsforautism.com. Okay, so let's move on to our question of the day. We always have a question for you, and I thought it was so inspirational yesterday, the questions that you guys had. So we're following that up with, what is the best gift you've ever received? And I'm going to get emotional because I say to my husband all of the time that he gave me the 2 best gifts that I could ever receive and that I will ever receive in my life. And one of them was that my husband loves me for who I am, not in spite of who I am. Best gift you can ever get in your life. And it's life-changing. It's the most wonderful, freeing thing that can happen to anyone, and I wish it for all of you. I hope you all have that. And the second thing, which truly is the best gift that he ever gave me, was that he made me a mom. And, I walked this earth a long time thinking that I was never going to be a mom, not planning to be a mom. And then eventually, when the biological clock started ticking so loudly that people could hear it in other states, thinking, wow, I want to be a mom, but my husband is the person who got that done. So best gifts I ever got, but and I'm all verklempt now, but we'd love to hear from you. What's the best gift you ever received? We're giving away a lot of gifts, and we're talking about some amazing things to give the people in our lives, and especially to our kids. We're going to do the Festival of Toys next week, and we're going to talk about some amazing, amazing things. But I think it's also great to talk about what's the best gift you ever received, because a lot of times it's not a thing. A lot of times it's not a thing. So we'll check in a little bit later on if we have time. We've got a pretty packed show today. We have a topic for the week, and our topic this entire week is smart gifting. That this is the time of year, 'tis the season, right? We are on the holiday treadmill. It's not that distant little squeak of the wind up, it's full on. And we want to gift, right? And to be in the spirit of gifting, which is to say to someone, you mean something to me, I appreciate you, and I remember you in this way, I've thought of you, right? Don't we love to get a gift that feels like it's specifically for us and thoughtful for us, and to enjoy the feeling of somebody cares about us? But let's face it, in these economic times, our dollars need to be smarter than they have been. And if we are dealing with autism, then we know we have some additional costs that other people may not have. Maybe they have their additional costs in another area, but in any case, we're watching our dollars. That doesn't mean that we don't want to say thank you and that we don't want to let people know how important they are to us. So we're just going to be smart about how we gift, whether it is to the teachers and the OTs and the speech and language pathologists who are in our life, that we want to say thank you to those people, or to family members. We want to do smart gifting. Now, next week, we really hit it hard in terms of our kids. It's insane the amount of toys that we have coming in. If you could see my office right now, and more are being shipped here. The different toy manufacturers that are going to be here with us next week, as I mentioned, Endless Games before. Lego is sending us stuff. We have stuff coming from Leapfrog, and a representative from Leapfrog who's going to talk to us. A doll, Little Pim, which is really amazing. Some representatives from Wicked Cool Toys are going to be with us with a dollhouse that is just going to knock your socks off. It's just incredible. One of my favorite toy manufacturers, Uncle Milton Toys. Oh my goodness, if you have children that are into science, I can't wait until you get to see Uncle Milton Toys. We've talked about Fat Brain Toys before, and we're going to have somebody from Erin from Lecotech is going to come back, and she's going to be sharing some toys from learning resources. And I'm pretty sure that we're having Kids Bop, the CD from Kids Bop on as well, and so many more. I've left so many out and I'm sure that they'll all be mad at me. But it's really going to be an incredible week, and we're really going to. And I have to say, and we'll show a little bit later on. We went to Toys R Us recently. We want to say thanks to Toys R Us for supporting us as well, and all the other toy manufacturers. Whoever I've forgotten, forgive me, but we'll make sure that we include you next week. So we'll talk about all of that this week. But this week we're still talking about gifts for the people in our lives that are on our list that we want to say thank you to, and that we want to help. We talked a little bit about yesterday, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the different categories of smart gifting. Giving the gift of education, we talked about yesterday. Giving the gift of pampering. And we talked a little bit about giving the gift of energy, whether it's through coffee or through health. And we talked a little bit about homemade gifts. So much to talk about today. Very excited today because we have our usual Friday lineup and some more. So some of the different things that we're going to be featuring on the show today. It is Funding Friday, and I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to get to that. We will have Dr. Adel Najdowski with us for Real Progress with Dr. Adel. Sometime in this hour, we are going to have Sarah Cho here with us, and we've had her before on this show. Amazing individual who works with kids on the autism spectrum, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about that CARD program for adults. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, and some of you wrote in and said, we want to know more about it. So Sarah Cho is going to be with us briefly to talk about that. We're literally pulling her out of an important meeting to talk about that with you today. As I said, we'll hopefully get a chance to talk about Funding Fridays. Dr. Jonathon Tarbox will be with us answering your questions. We've had a couple that came in, and some people that I've already talked to that we're going to pose for Dr. Tarbox. And then we're hoping, if they get off the plane in time, BCBA Ryan Gutterson is going to come in and talk to us about how you can get those Institute for Behavioral Training gift certificates for the teachers. And in the second hour, we're going to be giving more of those away. So you're not going to want to miss that. Big show, lots to talk about, and of course, your questions. So stick with us. We're going to take a break and be right back after these messages. Hi, we're at the Toys R Us in Porter Ranch, California. And Emily and I are going to take a little tour around the store and find some great toys for some great kids.
All right, let's go.
Come with us.
Yes.
Okay, bring your dinosaur and come on, let's go look at things in the game aisle.
Okay.
I know you love games.
I do love.
All right. So here we are in the game aisle, Emily, and I want to show you that there's all these games that you can get for kids of all ages. They're interactive and really remarkable. One of the hot toys this year and many other years is the Bop It toy.
Okay, so what about the Bop It is so reinforcing?
Well, you know what? It can be interactive. It can be a social game. It makes lots of noises. Sometimes they light up depending on the version. It helps to work on fine motor skills and it helps to work on fluency. This toy will grow with the child. And in fact, you can get it in different versions. This is a little bit more complex version. And up top here, we have one that's especially for older kids. It's called the Smash the Light. I would wait until a child is older to play with this one. So should we check out the Lego aisle?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Go. So how can we use Legos to help our kids?
Well, they're really spectacular toys for our kids because they work on executive functions and planning. They're really colorful. You can work on colors and grouping and matching, counting because they have the little dots on the top. And if you have a younger child, you can start with the Duplo toys that are compatible with Lego and they don't have the choking hazard.
So then as the kids get older, what's great about Legos, it looks like, is that there's all sorts of themes. We've got movies here and video games, so the kids can really connect with what's personal to them. So Legos are amazing, but what else do we have to see?
Let's look at some educational toys in the leapfrog aisle, shall we? Okay.
Okay, so what do you have here?
Well, we're in the leapfrog aisle. This particular toy, very popular this year, is a leap reader. It comes with a little pen, and it tells us that we're going to read, write, and listen, all skills that we want to work on with a child. This pen that's in this box, you can put it over different pages in the book. It will read aloud to the child. They can trace their letters. It reinforces them for doing a great job. It's a really spectacular toy for our younger kids that are working on reading, writing, and listening.
This looks like a lot of fun and a really great way to help our kids learn to read and write.
Absolutely.
What else are we going to play with today?
I think we should take a trip down the functional pretend play aisle. This is where you're going to find all the things that are like real, but the toy version. So I've got this lovely set here that's all fresh vegetables. So I'm teaching nutrition at the same time. They're all appropriately colored. But I've got a knife so I can be cutting them too. This is really great play for a young child.
Shannon, I heard you got some toys that I get to play with now.
Yes, I'm going to take you to the demo table. We're going to let Emily play with some toys, and we're going to be giving some of these toys away on the show. But they're not just any toys. These are toys that are featured in this year's Toys R Us toy guide for differently abled children. And this is put together with the help of our friends at Lecotech.
So what do all these different icons mean?
These are different icons that tell us what skill this toy might help to develop in our children.
So can I play with the toys now?
Yes, it's time to play with the toys, Emily.
So I think I recognize this guy.
Yes, this is the ever popular and very sweet Elmo. But this is a very specific Elmo that teaches adaptive skills like zippering.
Elmo's yellow triangle zipper.
And so we get the reinforcement of Elmo talking to us when we do these things. There's a let's keep playing. So it encourages the child to continue to interact. And he's very reinforcing. When he giggles, I just want to hug him and play with him some more. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some Melissa and Doug toys. These are incredible toys. They'll last several different generations because they're made out of good quality wood.
Awesome.
And let's start with a lace and trace toy. Now, I happen to know that you love turtles,
I
Emily.
do love turtles.
And this is a set of farm animals lace and trace. And the child can pick out a color that they like for for a lace.
All right.
And there are lots of different things that they can do with this. And I know it might seem like this is an old-fashioned toy, but you know, sometimes the old-fashioned toys are the best toys. Because what you're doing right now, Emily, is that you're using a lot of hand-eye coordination and you're using the pincer grasp. This is a precursor to writing right here. If you've got a child who's having difficulty holding a pencil, this is a really reinforcing way to work on this. And it comes in lots of different things. And then also for Melissa and Doug, we have this amazing switch and spin. Love this so much. This is a great cause and effect toy. As we start to put the gears together, we notice that when you turn one, another one can turn. You can rearrange this and do it in lots of different ways. There are 10 design boards, so you don't have to just do fish. There are other things that you can put there instead.
That's awesome.
Kids love this toy, and it's another Melissa and Doug toy.
Cool.
All right, let's take a look at some fun games.
So I found this game, and it's called Fibber. So Shannon, I'm going to need you to put on your fibbing glasses.
I want a fib.
All right. So this game is totally reinforcing, and it helps our kids to work on lying.
Yes, and that's something we really, I know it sounds strange, but we want to work on that because being able to tell a lie is something that helps with safety issues. And also being able to tell if somebody else is lying is a really useful life skill.
What you need to do is get rid of your cards without trying to grow your nose, kind of like Pinocchio.
Okay.
But if you get caught...
And so eventually you can have a whole string of noses attached to the end of your nose. Very colorful. Again, we can be working on the colors. Kind of hilarious. A kid's going to want to play this with mom or dad and see that mom is Pinocchio telling lots of lies. I like this game a lot.
This is a great game.
We've had a really great time at Toys R Us, and all of the toys that you see here on the table we're going to be giving away on the show. So stay tuned to find out how you can win one of these great toys. Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here. I'm here with Dr. Adel Najdowski, and she is sporting a mustache too. We have to show Dr. Najdowski with her mustache for Movember. We're trying, I have these on the desk now that whenever I have a guest who's game, that we can support Movember. Men's health issues, in particular prostate cancer, a very important thing. You're cracking me up. And if you didn't see the videotape last week, I knew about Movember, but I didn't know what it was for. I thought it was just people growing mustaches.
Yes, and it actually is for a good cause.
It's actually for a good cause. And so when Dr. Jonathon Tarbox came in with this really intense mustache last week and said, now we have to tell people because I'm doing this for awareness. And I said, oh, for heaven's sake, let's do it. So he drew a mustache on me. And I was just sharing what it was like when I went to pick up Jem after school that day and how everybody was staring at me. But in any case, I digress greatly. We are here with Dr. Adel Najdowski. She was one of the co-creators of Skills, and she has extensive experience in the field of autism, and so thrilled to have you here, first of all.
I'm so happy to be back. It's been 3 weeks.
Has it been 3 weeks? Oh my goodness. It feels like it's been a really long time. Thrilled to have you here. We call this segment Real Progress with Dr. Najdowski, Dr. Adel, and always thrilled to have her here. I've learned so much from Dr. Najdowski that I am going to write a book about it called Mornings with Dr. Adel.
You're going to forget those mornings if you don't hurry up.
No. I have a plan. I have a plan. This is happening in the next year. So yes. It's all good. And in any case, so I wanted her today to talk with us a little bit about this. We were talking about smart gifting, right? And one of the things that happens this time of year is that people are supposed to get a gift. And there's a certain amount of perspective taking that should come with gifting. A lot of times, just people that are male have issues with this, right? Let's be honest about that.
Yes.
It's not necessarily just about autism, but that whole thing about what do I get somebody? How do I take their perspective to figure out what's the good gift? And I was sharing with her during the break that I had a bunch of interns that used to work on my radio show, all college-age men, and they would talk to me about how stressful the holidays were because they couldn't figure out. Now, we can help kids that are older, but how great would it be if we started with our young kids and built these skills in as they grew?
Yeah,
right?
You just made me think of something kind of funny. It's actually a friend of mine who wanted to start a website for wives to go on and basically create a registry for what they were interested in for Christmas or the holidays, because he, as a typical male, had difficulty even figuring out what to get his own wife.
It is. I mean, men talk about this, about I don't know what to get. That's why they have those professional shoppers, because men frequently are like, I don't know what to get, and you know it matters to us women.
Yeah.
Because we need to see a certain kind of gift, and it has to show a certain level of thoughtfulness. It can't be just something that you picked up at 7-Eleven on the way home.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we can wait until they're 35 and be frustrated that they don't know how to do this, but we can teach this to all of our kids and our kids on the spectrum. What are some lessons that we can work on to strengthen the perspective taking around giving a gift?
The main thing is teaching them to identify other people's preferences. And, there's lots of ways you can teach this. Obviously, you can teach a child how to find out directly by asking someone, like, what's your favorite color? What do you like to eat? What do you like to do? Things like that. But at the same time, it's got to go beyond teaching them just to ask, right? So teaching them to actually be able to infer this is very important. And so you can give them some strategies, like you can tell if someone likes something a lot based on if they do it a lot or if they have a lot of it, and just observing them and watching them, in their environment. So you gave that example of your son.
I was saying during the break that I remember we would always do the preference lessons in skills, and with his therapist would do it with him and talk about, tell me, 3 things that you know about Beth, and what do you know about Beth, and what kinds of things does Beth like, and how do you know them, and what do you think she likes? All these different lessons, right? And I told you yesterday about how I used to make earrings for Christmas gifts because it was an inexpensive way, and it was therapy for me. And one year when I think Jem was 5 and I had made a bunch of earrings and I laid them all out on the table, I said, you have to pick a set of earrings for Sabrina, who was his case manager, and I said, which ones do you think Sabrina would like? And he said, oh, I want the black ones for Sabrina. Sabrina will like that because she wears black all the time, so she'll like these. And I was so excited I wanted to call Sabrina up right away, but I waited until he came, but I was thrilled.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't even have occurred to me.
Yeah,
frankly.
So here's the interesting thing, though. Sometimes, how individuals on the spectrum can be a little bit literal. So you tell them something like, observe your mom and see what does she do a lot of, and then figure out what she likes. And I've heard stories of kids saying something like, well, she does a lot of dishes, so she must like doing the dishes.
So that would come under the heading of false belief, which was our jargon today. She looks like she likes that because she does it all the time. But
Right.
It's a false.
So then you have to kind of say to them, well, okay, try to choose things that they do a lot of or have a lot of or whatever, but that they don't have to do.
And
they're
make
choosing
them
to
smile, not make them grimace, right?
do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a choice that they're engaging in that behavior.
Right.
It's not that dishes are there every day and it's something that has to be done and someone's got to do them, Like, if she had the choice, what would she be doing, or what do you see her doing in more of her free time?
Yeah.
And if it's reading a lot, then maybe she likes books. And, what kind of authors have you seen her read a lot of, and stuff like that.
And so giving them the tools to be able to choose. And there are a lot of precursors to getting to that point. But again, all of these lessons are available for people in skills, all the lessons about preferences, but just how you would use it, you can pick and choose and apply it to gift giving, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is that I think is kind of cool is when you're working with younger kids, I personally, because I'm a mom, I'd rather my children not spend their money on a gift for me. I'd rather they make me something that's free. And they can even ask me a question, like if they, for example, my son's really into the rainbow loom bracelet making right now. In fact, this is one of the bracelets that he made for me.
Very cool.
Isn't that cool?
I went and bought one of the looms. We haven't done it yet, but I went and bought one, the block with the 2 nails on it, because you said how cool it was.
Yeah. So if he's like thinking he wants to make a bracelet for me, but he doesn't want me to know he's making a bracelet for me too by giving it all away, he could just simply ask me one day in conversation, like, what's your favorite color, Mom? And I could tell him.
Right.
And then what would be so cute about that is if he then went and made me a bracelet using that color. So that's another thing we can teach our kids to do.
Absolutely.
Without, completely giving away what their plans are.
Yeah, and you know what my sneaky thing to do is, now that my son is quite good at this, I'll take him shopping and I'll go, oh, look at this gift that I would really like. I wish I had someone who would tell Daddy that, how much I like this gift. That's how I get the job done. And he's gotten quite good at it. That he'll remember. And the most exciting thing that happened recently for my birthday, my son got me one of those stone wave cookers, because I'm now cooking eggs in the morning now that I can't have yogurt because I'm allergic to milk. I cook eggs in the morning.
Okay.
And he saw a commercial on television and went and woke my husband up on a Sunday morning and said, I saw this thing that Mom's gonna love because you can cook eggs in the microwave and it doesn't explode everywhere. And he said, no, it's the best thing. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's so cool that your son was actually thinking about what you would like.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that's awesome.
It's very awesome.
So it's something you can definitely start at a young age of getting them thinking that way.
Absolutely. And so we would find, which curriculum are the preference lessons in? I can't.
So the preference lesson has many different activities, teaching them to identify what people like and also what they don't like, and how to apply that information. So during play activities, if a friend was coming over and they're going to have a play date, she's coming over, what do you think she'll want to play with? And like thinking in advance of certain activities you might have, or like what kind of foods or drinks does she like, and making sure we have those on hand and stuff like that. This is all in the preference lessons. There's plenty of different activities, even getting into what is so-and-so not like.
Okay.
And making sure that if they don't like something, we don't persist and just do that the whole time and ruin the experience, so that we generate an alternative idea, something that maybe they will like. And also, what's also cool about this preferences thing is we also teach them to think about, okay, if this person likes this particular item, what else might they like based on that? So, for example, I love anything with peanut butter and chocolate. I love Reese's peanut butter cups.
I did not know that about you.
So if I like that, then what else might I like? I might like peanut butter chocolate ice cream.
Okay.
Or cookies that have peanut butter and chocolate in them and things like that. So we start to get them to think like that too. Like, think of something she really likes a lot, because they might say, well, she already has that.
Yeah.
Okay, but what else might she like if she likes that?
And once you
What's
can get
similar or
once
something?
you can get a child thinking like that, you're really in a great area. Because they'll start. That's the beginning of critical thinking, which they can then apply to literature and other things at school. Great set of lessons to start on, and especially with the holidays, I think it's a perfect time to be working on those.
And this is all in the preferences lesson, which is in the cognition curriculum of skills.
There we go.
And the nice thing is that not only do we teach them to apply it to play and all that kind of stuff, but also conversation.
Okay.
Like, some people don't like to talk about that topic of conversation that you like to talk about all the day, every day,
All part of this perspective taking.
Yeah.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about these kinds of subjects with Dr. Adel, and we're taking your questions, so stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about step number 1, accept and embrace this challenge. Now we're moving on to step number 2, educate yourself. After my son Wyatt was diagnosed, I put up a sign over my home office that said Autism Central. I went to school in my home office every night after my husband and Wyatt had gone to bed, because I was determined to learn everything there was about autism. That's because knowledge is power. Visit all the autism websites you can, read all the books you can, learn about all the organizations that are out there that offer free guides to help you. Some of them even offer mentors to help guide you. Find out about local support services. Find out about what educational services your child is entitled to. Get to every autism conference and seminar you can. I'll never forget the first autism conference that I went to. The first speaker was a beautiful, brilliant woman named Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet. She spoke about a therapy called Applied Behavioral Analysis, or ABA. She told about how it could improve the life of children with autism, and in some cases, recover them. Now, despite the fact that Wyatt had been diagnosed for over a year, nobody had told me about this therapy. I remember calling my husband on the cell phone and saying, honey, I met the woman who is going to help improve Wyatt's life. And I'm happy to say that 8 years later, that's true. Are you feeling a little overwhelmed by all the information that's out there? Well, you're not alone. But try different approaches for your child. trust your gut. Just 40 short years ago, mothers were told if their child had autism that they would have to be institutionalized, and in some cases they were actually blamed for their child's autism for failing to bond with the child. That was called refrigerator mother syndrome. Well, thank goodness times have changed. So until next time, learn everything you can about autism and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We call this segment Real Progress with Dr. Adel because we really get to the heart of the progress that we want to see. We've been talking a little bit about smart gifting with Dr. Adel and how we can teach our kids to identify preferences and infer what somebody else might want. But because it's the holiday season and we're all going to start going to stores and see more crowds there, I wanted to take just a second and talk with Dr. Najdowski about safety issues when you're out and about shopping.
Yes.
And because there are a whole bunch of lessons that we can be doing in a lot of different areas that have to do with safety, even being able to identify if something happens and you get separated from your mom, how to identify who you should ask for help for. And there are a whole lot of lessons that are in skills that there are things that I just wouldn't even have thought of, that I wouldn't have thought of, oh, we actually need to teach this part of the lesson, including recognizing who the workers are in an individual store.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about what that kind of takes a child through.
Well, it's good for them to know the workers and to identify that the people wearing the vests, that are all the same or whatever within a store are kind of like your safety net people you can go to and talk to if you get lost from your parents, because that is something that can happen during this season when there's a lot of shoppers, and it can happen anytime, really.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when you're teaching these kind of safety skills, just talking to your child about it is not enough. And a lot of times that's what people do. Like they sit down with their child and they say, okay, so, which people is it that they're the workers? Okay, those are the workers. Okay, so if for some reason you get lost, here's what I want you to do. You're going to yell for me, and if I don't come, then you need to go find one of those workers and you need to tell them you're lost. Okay, you understand? Yes, Mom. Okay, great. And then they're done. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they literally go, yeah, my kid knows what to do if he gets lost.
Right. And yet we see statistically the reality, and even when doing this with kids who aren't on the spectrum, when something happens, they don't end up doing what was discussed.
Exactly. And actually it's the same problem even with like typically developing kids. A lot of time, like parents think they talk to their child about what to do if a stranger ever approaches, and then they're good to go now because they've talked about it.
Oh, if you've ever seen on Oprah when they'll show, they've done it several times on Oprah where they'll sit down with completely neurotypical kids and siblings and say, okay, now, if a man came up to you in a white van in a parking lot and said, come and look at the puppies inside the van, no, we wouldn't get in, we wouldn't do that. And then they have the actor there with the van with the puppies and the kids get in. And then the mother comes and says, why did you do that? So it is amazing how when we talk to kids about safety versus and the kids always say, yeah, but this was different because, and there's something that's different.
Yeah,
right? But so if talking about it isn't enough, what do we need to do?
You need to set up the rules, which is what I just described. The talking about it is kind of like, here's what you need to do, here's your rules. But then you need to role play.
Yeah.
And actually practice going through the motions and provide reinforcement for it.
I loved, we were able to do this with therapists where we did it gradually at different stores, and finally it culminated, one of the things in the culmination was we went to a Target store, told the manager that we were going to do it, had the therapist there, we had the plan, we'd even told Jem at some point you're going to get separated from mom and then you have to go through all the different things, and the therapist was going to stay with him, but he had to determine what they were going to do. And it was just crushing when I walked away from him in the Lego aisle and he immediately, the first thing that he had to do was start calling my name, and I could hear him calling me and I had to run to get away so that he wouldn't see where I was. It felt so counterintuitive, and I hid someplace that I could see him go up to the desk, and it still was hilarious to me because he walked up to the desk and he said, can you please page my mom, she's lost. He didn't think he was lost. He thought I was lost, right? Which just clues you into how kids look at things, right?
That is great. I love that story.
She's lost. And even the manager thought that was hilarious.
So the key rules to teach your child are if you get separated from me and you're lost, or I'm lost.
Right.
First step is call my name. If I don't come to you, locate a worker, and these are what the workers look like, and tell them you're lost. And then they'll take care of it from there. Stay there and wait.
And it may sound overwhelming to think, well, workers look different in each and every store, but we actually had, it was like a game that we had. It started with, we went around town and took pictures of all the stores that we normally go to. So we had a picture of the outside of the store. And then eventually we went into the stores and took pictures. And he knew that at Target they wear tan pants and they have red shirts. And at Wal-Mart they have tan pants and they have blue shirts and they have a name tag somewhere. And it got to be a thing that we would quiz and go, so what do the guys at Trader Joe's wear? They wear Hawaiian shirts. And it was kind of fun. So it doesn't have to be drudgery.
Yeah, and the truth is that if you teach enough of those different exemplars, they will be able to generalize to a new store where they didn't ever get taught, because they start to notice like there's certain features of a worker. There is more than one of them. They all have the exact same outfit on, and the name tag is a pure giveaway as well. And if you're not sure who a worker is, go up near the cash registers and look who's scanning the stuff, because whatever they're wearing is what the other workers are going to be wearing.
Now, having said that, one of the things that we were always taught was that if you can't find a worker, you're not you're outdoors and there's not a worker, that to train our kids to go to if they can't find a first responder like a policeman or a fireman or something, to go to a mom who has a kid with her, that those will be the people who will be the most helpful. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so smart to tell our kids to do that, so that those are generally, you can trust that those are people who don't have bad thouts in their head. You know what I mean? Up to nefarious purposes, right? Exactly. They're busy picking up cracker crumbs, so they don't have time to be coming up with
And
plots.
they have empathy of a lost child, because they have a child that they would be devastated if their child was lost.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. So all great advice. Again, they can find lessons along the lines to teach these kinds of things at skills.
So we have a safety awareness lesson in the skills curriculum, and those kind of things are in that lesson.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For November, we're going to be working on memory with our kids, and what better way than doing a scavenger hunt. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are a camera, cardstock, scissors, glue, and whatever objects you want your child to be hunting for. Step 1, you're the hunter. Find all the objects you want your child looking for and take photos of them. Now that you've collected all the objects you want your kids hunting for later, print out the images and then cut them out and glue them on a cardstock just so they're organized and isolated. Now that the scavenger hunt template is done, put all the objects back where they belong. Remember, we're working on memory, so put them in places that your kids would normally find them. You want them to be successful. We'll make this one really easy to find. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity with your kids. Remember, the scavenger hunt is supposed to be a fun way to work on memory. Well, until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back. We have a question. We're going to take the question. It's a lengthy question for Dr. Najdowski, and because you are somebody we always take our feeding questions to, and this just came in. We've got an almost 4-year-old nonverbal boy. For the last 6 months or so, he's been throwing up while he's eating. Used to be with new foods. Now it's when he eats his normal foods. Used to be when he would have a new food touch his mouth, but his speech therapist has recently gotten him to eat new foods without throwing up. Sometimes it happens in public, sometimes at home. We've been tracking his new foods, attempting this and that, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason for his throwing up. I've been bringing him his own normal foods when we go out or to someone's house. This week, he threw up 3 times, once in public. Feeding therapy has kind of been introduced as much as possible, as we are still working on getting funding for that approved. I've thought about maybe an actual food log, logging every little crumb that enters his mouth, the mood that he's in, how much he ate, how much he didn't eat, suggestions. I don't know what to do.
Okay.
It's lengthy.
Yeah.
And let me know if you need me to refer back to any of it, because I
might.
just threw it up. Yes, that's fine.
All right. So the first thing I want to address is the fact that this idea that there's no rhyme or reason, it's not necessarily new foods, it's even the familiar foods, and it's happening all the time, randomly or whatever.
Right.
It makes me want to tell you, first off, to take him to get a medical evaluation, just to make sure that everything's okay medically, because you don't necessarily know that this is a behavioral feeding issue. It could just be some other issues he's having. Lots of different things could be going on with the GI system and things like that. So that would be my first thing. But I do agree with you about doing the log and keeping track basically of every single thing that you feed him and his reaction to it, and try to get some rhyme or reason there. But also looking at what are the consequences of when he throws up. So what do you do when he throws up? Do you make a big deal about it and remove the food, and then he doesn't have to eat it, and maybe he didn't want to begin with? So look at the thing happening right before the food is being delivered. Is he basically saying, no, I don't want that, and you're kind of saying, no, you have to, and then when he eats it, he throws up, and then, okay, now you don't have to anymore? If that's the case, it could be becoming a little bit behavioral, like he's learning that if I don't want to eat something, all I need to do is make myself throw up and it goes away. And it's interesting, kids who become like this, they get pretty good at it, and literally it's almost like second nature for them to just be able to make themselves do it whenever they want to.
I have a friend who has a child who's a spontaneous puker. He just, like if you say to him, puke for us, he can do it on demand. He just is that good at it.
Yeah, it's weird.
He's old enough now that, he's stopped doing it, but yeah, if they ever needed a kid in a movie who could just throw up on command, this kid can do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And they get very good at that. And I've seen cases before where it was literally to either escape having to eat the food, or it was to get attention or whatever. But when they continued to not remove the food or not provide the attention, then the kid started eating the food. And I know it's like one of those behaviors where it's so like almost like shocking or devastating or whatever, and the reaction is just to be like, like you get so upset when you see someone throw up. And so it's pretty effective, if you can imagine, on the part of the child. Like, they get pretty much what they want whenever they do it. But I'm not saying that's the reason why your son is doing that, and that's why I think you should have your medical evaluation for sure first.
And because there are so many things medically that could cause that.
Yeah.
And infinitely fixable medical things. We just, honestly, with Jem, went through a period of time where he has had a lot of allergies. It's been a really bad allergy year, and he had a lot of postnasal drip. And so he was gagging, and sometimes to the point where he would throw up, and it was because of that postnasal drip. Yeah. So there are lots of different things that it could be, and I think great advice, rule that out first.
Yeah, and for one, I would definitely, when you go in public, just bring the safe foods that you know are going to be okay. And if it turns out that there's other foods that you want to try to work on, and you're worried that he might actually throw up, you're better off doing it at home, where you can actually follow through and things like that. It could be certain textures or smells or things that are bothering him as well, and he just has like a high gag reflex or whatever. And with those kind of things, that's when you have to start thinking about, like, how important is it that he eat this food, and is there a big enough variety of other things that he's eating that I don't need to force the issue on these ones? Yeah. Or do I really need him to eat this? And if so, then starting really small and kind of desensitizing him to it. But it sounds like you're doing some of the right things, like you're looking towards feeding therapy and things like that. So.
And I'm fairly confident that if this parent is who I think they are, because they have the name of the child here, that I think you're in Arizona. And if you're, correct me if I'm wrong, depending on where you are in Arizona, there is a new, fairly new thing in place that if your child is under the age of 5 and you're within certain areas of Arizona, you can be getting ABA funding for exactly these kinds of things for the feeding. So I know you say that you're still working on getting the funding approved. I hope you've looked into that particular program. I wish I could remember accessing that part of my brain, what the name of that program is in Arizona, but it's for kids under the age of 5. So almost 4-year-old that you've got, you would have a whole year of that, and that's exactly the kind of thing that they like to fund. So write back and let us know if you have Okay, follow-up. We have been to the doctor. He put him on 10 milligrams of Prilosec. He threw it up and refused to take it after that due to the fact that he has not increased or decreased in height or weight. He doesn't think it's an internal issue. Follow-up number 2, no, I give no reaction at all. I clean him up. I clean up the mess. He gets nothing special after. He doesn't get upset. He doesn't cry, nothing. You know what, I'm just going to say...
Wait a sec, though. You stop and you clean up the mess. So is he still having to eat?
Okay.
Because, like, how do those two things go hand in hand? Like, I've literally seen, and this is going to sound crazy, but where people just kind of don't clean up the mess. And they just continue with the meal, and then at the end they clean up the mess.
Okay. All right, so write back and let us know that. But I'm also going to say my concern, if you've got a child who's not yet 4 and the doctor is prescribing Prilosec for this, I'm going to say to you that there are other doctors who specifically deal with these kinds of issues, and I'm going to encourage you to go to a different kind of doctor.
Yeah, I was going to say make sure you get second opinion and even a third opinion a lot of times. It's so interesting how different people, they all have different approaches and philosophies.
There are a couple of specific doctors that deal with feeding issues, and if you want to email and confirm that you are who I think you are, because I don't want to assume, because lots of kids have different names. I'll send you some names of. And she wrote out, no, I do not make him finish his meal. That might be interesting to try that if you don't clean up the mess and make him finish and see what happens.
So what happens afterwards? Do you then present a different food that he wants to eat, that he's requesting, or is the meal just over with, or what exactly?
Okay, and I'm going to give her a second to write that. But I'm also going to say if you send me your email, I'll send you the names of a couple of doctors who specialize in these kinds of feeding issues that are medical doctors that are going to know more than just get out a prescription pad and prescribe a medicine that is really an adult medicine.
Yeah, and if you do write in and tell us where at least you're from, I also have different people I can refer you to as well, depending on where your location is.
And she said, yes, Shannon, it is who you think it is. And I will check with his support coordinator in regards to his ABA thing you're talking about, and we'll send you some more information. But I think it would be interesting to see what happens if the non-reaction is he throws up and you just keep. It is a parent's instinct that if you're helping to shovel food in and they ERP, as we call it in our house, that you would stop. Right?
Yeah.
But it might be interesting to see just once if it's you just keep on going as if it didn't happen, and see.
I mean, I know of cases where literally the child just did it to escape from eating the food, and they just had a bucket, and when the child would throw up, they just went like this, and then presented the next bite. The meal never ended, and it got rid of the problem. And I know that sounds crazy, and it's totally not intuitive.
But if it works, right? Because you get to a point, and I'm sure that it's eating your stomach lining being like, oh, is he going to throw up at this meal? We're out here, and is he going to throw up? And is he going to, do I need to bring a change of clothes? I'm sure it's wearing on you.
But at the same time, you don't want to jump into that until you've really investigated all the medical issues that could be going on. Because can you imagine you're doing that to your son, and then you find out that he's allergic or he has some sort of maybe.
Right, and it could be a lot of different things that are just causing that, since it's so random. But I'll email you some names, and I'll forward to Dr. Najdowski so that she knows and can send you some stuff as well. And she said no, the meal is over when that happens. So interesting. And again, not necessarily that, but sometimes that can be. So we'll work on it. We'll send you some stuff, some information, and then do me a favor and get back to us on it and let us know what happens and what you decide to do and what you find out, okay? Because we like to do follow-ups. All right, we are out of time for Dr. Najdowski. We thank you so much for being here and for answering our questions and giving us some great ideas on how to get our kids to be smart shoppers, smart gifting shoppers, and safe in the stores this holiday season. Really important. All right, we're going to take a break and go to the A word. This is the ongoing documentary documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following Jack Riley. This one is a tough one because Jack Riley, like a lot of our kids, he's making progress and he's just having a rough little patch here. And it's great to see the difference between what the dad is doing when he throws a little tantrum and what the therapists do. That non-reaction, you're about to see it. So take a look. This is the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
This is the kind of... Come inside, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Come
on, dude. There's a lot of toys in here.
I said Paul's not coming over today.
Thank you.
I didn't like to see Paulo today, and I didn't like him.
Yeah, don't attend that.
Let's go. Let's go find some toys.
I'm sad I didn't like Paulo.
Let's go. Jack Riley, go play.
What? Oh, to come over today.
He's just so argumentative about everything. You know, Paulo's not coming today. I said, Paulo's going to be there. Paulo's not coming.
Redirected to ask me, is Paulo coming today?
Okay.
Yes, Paulo's coming today. End of discussion. And redirected to something else. Like how we redirected him into playing instead of perseverating on the fact that everyone's here and he doesn't want whoever to come over.
In the last week, he's wet himself several times. It's like he's sliding back a little bit. He's either lost interest in it or control. I don't know.
So if he hasn't gone within 2.5 to 3 hours, you guys need to remind him. Remind him of the reinforcer to initiate. Do you guys have a reinforcer set?
Yeah, it's different every time.
It's
like right
different
now, we've been
every
working on stickers for Lego City.
How many stickers do I need to get to Lego City?
I think you need 20. Do you know how many you have right now? If you don't know, you can ask Dad. You say, Dad, how many stickers do I have left?
Dad, how many stickers do I have
You have 17, so you only have 3 left.
Ooh, you only need 3.
That's 20 minus 17 is 3.
Cool.
17 is 3?
Okay.
Whoa.
So 3 times today, if you say, I have to go pee-pee, and you go pee-pee, then you're going to get Lego City today. So it reminds him about the reinforcement system that's in place, so he knows right away what he's earning. Because if it takes him a while to remember, then it means it's probably not worth it enough to him.
Okay, I hurry up.
You guys alluded to my graphs on parental thing, like what I'm strong at, what I'm not. Just tell me what I'm weak at. I can take it.
We can make you a cheat sheet.
All right.
I'll tell you right now. So non-compliance, as far as following through with non-compliance, what's happening?
No, like when Mike gives an instruction and he doesn't comply, Mike does follow through. I think maybe, because sometimes it's like the spur of the moment, maybe sometimes you might need to do a preference assessment of what he wants.
Well, let me tell you what happened last week. I got to a point where he's sitting down, and I picked the smallest thing to get a sticker for. I said, stand up and you can have a sticker for Lego City, which has been a big deal. He wouldn't stand up. I just ran out of ideas.
So what did you do? What did you do and stand up?
What's that? I tried to pick him up from his
Yes.
and sit right down. He did the lifeless body thing.
And then what happened?
Well, I kept picking him up and he kept sitting down. And he kicked my ass. I lost.
I would say that would be your number one thing to work on.
Okay.
Is it does not matter how much he tests you, he is going to stand up.
And you know, it's. I'm sure you guys could have gotten him through it. One tough thing after another, and whatever skills I have go out the window. That's the part that's pissing me off.
Well, and I think he knows that too. I
Okay.
think he knows that he's majorly pushing a button with you.
Okay.
And it's one that he does have control over.
Yeah.
Because like you will sit with
Pisses
him.
me off that 4-year-old's kicking.
No, it's just you have a very strong history of that happening, and so it's going to be extra hard for you to work through it.
Right.
But you can. You just have to really stick with it.
Okay.
Paula, I.
Oh,
You gotta say it better.
You gotta say it better, buddy.
how I need to go.
Better, dude.
Jack Riley, you are not going to get a sticker if you're silly about it. You have to say, Paulo, I have to go potty. And if you don't say it, then you don't get a sticker and you're still going to have to go potty.
Try again, dude.
I have to go potty.
Thank
All right,
you.
good job, buddy.
Okay, go potty.
Come on, buddy.
Give me, show, so it's right here. Contrives. How do you feel? I'm not sure. So we're going to open it.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Jack. I Got a nice warm seafood right here, dude.
It's a time
We're
to
gonna
go
put the
yet.
first date it was run, which was 6:14.
Mother, it's time to go.
Introduce.
But it's time for me to go.
Jack, have a
Time
seat.
for me to go.
Try again, bud. Have a seat.
Game over. Oh,
What does a door have?
This is torture. He threw a tantrum in there, and I was glad to be sent out of the room. Regression might be a strong word, but he's not in school anymore, so I think he's sort of slid back a little bit. Whatever school did for him, I think he's missing it, maybe. Sort of depressing when you feel like you should be better at handling his tantrums and picking him out, and really I don't know that I'm helping a great deal right now.
Daddy is waiting for you to be all done. It is time for you to go home. You are not leaving until you get all of your tokens. You need to answer nicely.
I'm calling Daddy. I need to
Oh, try again, dude. What does a bear have on its skin?
I feel like I'm sort of back at square one. I'm reacting emotionally as opposed to the skills I'm learning. It's just you start doubting yourself, and then once you start doubting yourself, I think you don't react as you should when he's having a problem.
Hey, Jack, what does a refrigerator have?
It has a handle.
Good, dude. Look, you're so fast, dude.
I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sad.
Tell me what a cabinet has.
It has a handle.
Good, dude. Jack, tell me what a bird has.
It has a feather.
Yeah, it has feathers, dude. Last one, dude. Tell me what a zebra has.
It has stripes.
Up top, dude. All done.
He's fine. He's not a grudge holder. I mean, but I wanted him to hug everybody because it was a tough session. So.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I'll see you at school tomorrow.
Sometimes the A word, like a lot of things in our lives, is hard to watch our kids struggle. And the thing that I always remember when I see my kids struggling now, or I see another kid struggling, the first thing that I remind myself is, what are we asking him to do? Is it something that he can do? And in this case, it's clearly a question of compliance. It's something that Jack Riley has already mastered. He can absolutely do it, right? And so it's important to delineate that as a parent and go, right, we're just asking him to do something that we already can. He just isn't wanting to comply. Okay. And some days I'm in a snit, and it doesn't matter what you say to me, I'm in a snit, right? And our kids get that way too. But the other thing that I remind myself is, okay, why are we doing this? And the lesson that somebody had said to me is that when our kids are learning how to walk, we understand that they're going to go through a difficult time, and that they're going to do trial and error, and that sometimes they're going to fall. And our kids, we even try to put bumpers on the coffee table and things like that and try to clear the way so that they don't hurt themselves. But we know that they're going to fall. And I don't know about you, but the first few times that my kid tried to walk and he fell, hit his head, and then there were tears over it, right? But we don't at any point go, you know what, that's it. He's hurting himself. This is craziness. Enough with the trying to learn how to walk. That's just it. We'll get them fit for a wheelchair, and enough with this trying. We don't do that. And why don't we do that? Because we know that there is a process through which they have to go, and that sometimes it's going to be painful for them because they're going to make mistakes, and we try to make it as safe as possible so they don't injure themselves badly while they're learning how to walk. But we understand that they're going to fall, and we pick them up and we give them an opportunity to do it again. Well, it's the same thing with everything else with autism. We have to keep giving them the opportunities and know that they're going to get emotional about it. And it's okay for them, and it's okay for us to have an emotional reaction to it. I know that dad had to have wanted to cry, and I would not be surprised to find out that he afterwards cried. And I think, the moms will freely admit it and go, I left that clinic and I cried. Because you have that emotion of, he's working so hard, and why is it so hard? And, but to remember, Are we asking him to do something that's within his scope? And usually when we have the tantrums at this point, it is, and it's simply a compliance issue. And we just have to get them back on track and remind them, hey, when you comply, it's all okay. And did you notice at the end there when the therapist, who we just recently had on the show, that's CJ, and we had him on the show just recently, and he's saying, so what does a bird have? And he's like, feathers, and he gives him the little sticker. He says, dude, you're done. And he's like, really? That's all it took? He has that little moment, Jack Riley, where he's like, I thought there was going to be some big, there was something big that I had to do that I couldn't do. He's like, oh, we're done. And they do all the hugging and the celebrating to remind him, see, nobody's trying to do anything really hard here. It's all for his benefit. It's just like every day when, there are certain things that we do above and beyond homework. And my son says, every day we have this discussion. He goes, why are we doing this? And, now I've gotten to the point where I just say asked and answered. But, for a lot of time I was saying, because we love you and we want you to be ready for when you go to college so that you can be a rocket engineer. And you're not going to get there unless you do regular homework plus, and then he says, but the other kids don't have to do this. Well, I'm not their mom and I love you. And so, that's why we're going to do this. And sometimes you got to talk yourself through that, because honestly, you heard that dad say, it's just tough sometimes. It's just tough. I feel like I'm not good. And I have to remind myself, why are we doing this? Oh, why am I doing this? Because this is a skill my child needs, and it's going to take him longer than everybody else. And I can be angry about that, and I can be disappointed, and I can be pissed off, but the deal here is my child deserves the right to be able to learn this, and they do. We just have to give them enough opportunities. We just have to keep doing that, and we deal with the emotion, and we accept it, that this is hard, and we lean into each other and hold hands. So, and one of the ways that we can hold hands is watch this mom and this dad with all the things that they're going through, and you will feel like, okay, they're doing okay. They can do this. I can do this. I can be strong in these moments and I can give my child the gift of allowing them their feelings, allow them to be frustrated, and still give them the opportunity to learn. It's a woohoo moment. And I can tell you, you get through it. And when you get through it and they have it, they're happy, happy kids. And he says he doesn't hold a grudge. None of the kids hold a grudge because nobody's torturing them. When they comply and do the thing and show that they have the skill, the world is a happy place. So, and it's not like they're being punished. They just have to sit there and keep doing it. So we keep on plugging. Okay, really quickly, because as we went into break for the A word, Dr. Najdowski, before she left, said, oh my gosh, there's one thing, important thing that I left out of this conversation. Please make sure that this mom knows that one really important thing that she can be doing right now is reinforcing your child for eating and not throwing up. So her suggestion was to find something that is so reinforcing to your child that you're 100% sure that they really, really want, save it just for meal times, and to start with the simplicity of, giving him one bite, and when he doesn't throw up, he gets the reinforcer immediately. And then eventually you gradually will move to taking 2 bites and not throwing up, you get the reinforcer, until the point you can get that each time that you're feeding, they get through the whole meal, and then they get the reinforcer. But she said key points were they only get the reinforcer if they're not throwing up, and to start very slowly and gradually ramp up. And she said, one of the things that we'll see is if it is purely behavioral and he truly wants this reinforcer really badly, and she said it's got to be something that this child wants, and that you don't allow it for any other other thing, but for this, that if it's purely behaviorally, you'll get through the meal and not throw up. And if you are still having throwing up when the child really wants to reinforce it, it's really going to be a clue to you that it's not purely behavioral. So she wanted to make sure that I would let you know that. And that mom had also written, you guys are awesome. I love this live feature. We do too. And she said thank you. So, and I made sure that Dr. Knew that. We have another question here. Okay. So I'll look at this and we'll come back because I got to read it and understand it. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hi everyone, Thanksgiving is fast approaching and we thought it'd be really fun to teach you a gluten-free stuffing recipe with help from Breads from Anna. Now this is a 2-day recipe, and so day 1 we're going to make this bread. Here's what you're going to need. 1 package of Breads from Anna bread mix, 1 packet of active dry yeast, 3 eggs, 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/2 cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon ground sage, thyme, rosemary, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, and then a pinch of tarragon, onion powder, marjoram, and garlic powder. On day 2, when we put the stuffing together, here's what you'll be needing. 6 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 bulb of fennel, 1 chopped onion, 2 chopped carrots, 1/2 cup of gluten-free chicken broth, 1 teaspoon of ground sage, thyme, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. All right, step 1, we're gonna dissolve our sugar into our water. And then we're gonna go ahead and add our active yeast. We're gonna dissolve all these together. So we're gonna just set this aside. Now we're going to take our bread mix right on over to our mixer. So first things first, we're going to put all our liquids together before we add in our dry bread mix. We're putting in 3 eggs, our oil, apple cider vinegar, water, and our water, yeast, sugar mixture. We're going to blend these all together. So once our liquids are all mixed together, we're going to go ahead and add our bread mix. We're also going to add all of our spices now. Okay, now that our bread's been mixed, we're going to spoon this into a bread dish and we're going to let it rise for about an hour. Okay, so now that we've let this rise for about an hour, we're going to bake it at 375 for another hour. All right, it's been an hour, so let's grab our bread out of the oven. We're going to let this cool for a little bit, and then we're going to actually cube the bread, and we're going to toast it in the oven just a little bit longer to dry it out so that when we add it to the vegetables, it'll make a really great stuffing. So as you can see, we've toasted our little breads here in the oven, and now what we're going to do is saute some of these vegetables so that we can mix it in with the bread and make our final stuffing combination. So we'll start with the butter. So we're going to start with our onions so that we can make sure these are good and cooked before we add the other vegetables. They cook a little bit longer. Okay, those are looking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and add our fennel, our carrots, our garlic, and then all our spices. So you're going to want to cook this until the carrots especially are nice and soft. Our vegetables are pretty soft here, so what we're going to do is go ahead and mix this with our bread. We're also going to go ahead now and add our 1/2 cup of broth. So once these are mixed together, we're going to go ahead and pour it into our greased baking dish, and we're going to bake it an additional 20 minutes at 350 degrees. All right. Okay, I think it's ready. La, la, la. All right, and we can add a little garnish here. Perfect, and it's ready for Thanksgiving dinner. To learn how you can win some breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live. Until next time, happy holidays.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us in the studio Dr. Jonathon Tarbox. Welcome.
Well, great to be here.
We call this Science Beat with Dr. Tarbox, and I'm going to put my little mustache back on. You know, if you were here with us last week, I forced, it was me, I was the instigator, Dr. Tarbox, to draw a mustache on my face, which was quite fun. I think we both enjoyed that. And I went to Jem's school afterwards, forgot that I had it on.
No way.
Yes. I mean, I made the choice to leave it on because I thought, oh, Jem will like this, but then I got there and totally forgot about it. I was preoccupied, and his teacher walked up to me, and she kind of, and then she laughed, and I said, oh, I forgot I have a red mustache on my face, and she said, yes, you do. So, but I think the kids liked it. Whatever. But we should say that you're, and it's a different mustache this week. It's looking very, it's looking very like, is it Hercule Poirot that has the mustache? It's a little like that?
I don't know. I'm just experimenting.
But in any case, this is for Movember, and you were the one who turned us on to this, so explain what Movember is for.
Right, so Movember, in the month of Movember, you can wear a mustache to raise awareness for prostate cancer research, and to support men's health in general.
Awesome, and we want to support that, so there we are. I have my little stick one, and it's looking very sculpted.
I think I probably should have opted for a stick rather than the full commitment. But
no, it looks great. I actually like, last week's was it was a different look for you. I will say that. But this is quite nice. In any case, we are taking your questions for Dr. Tarbox. I want to start with a comment, though. We just showed an episode of the A Word, and somebody wrote in a comment about something, and I just want to clarify for a second, and maybe you can address this as well. I have a problem with A Word this week, somebody wrote in, and they said the father said the therapists don't feel bad when a child is having trouble. I know that is false because everyone feels awful when a child is having trouble. I know this because I had many people who have told me this. And I think you're right. I think what the father was referring to is that what I always say here, that the therapists can steal themselves a little bit more because there is a disconnect when it is not your child. I still feel bad when I see Jack Riley cry, but I can sit here and say, oh, that's horrible, that's terrible, but they need to keep on because I know where they're going to get to. When it's your own kid, it's different. But I agree with you that I think the therapists do feel bad when the child, and I think that dad would tell you that too.
Of course, and it's important to kind of distinguish between suffering or difficulties that we go through that don't have any good purpose and are just negative and to be avoided, versus those that we go through for a good reason and to produce an important outcome. You know, and so now I'm speaking kind of metaphorically, but. Let's say the pain that you experience when you're doing training, like let's say you're an athlete, it doesn't feel good, it hurts, right? But no one sympathizes with you. It's a good kind of pain, and you almost want to experience that. And if you're not experiencing any suffering at all during your training, it means you're not training hard enough. You know what I mean? So no,
I don't know what you mean, but I understand the concept. But no, I don't know what you mean.
And so there's many things that we do in life that matter a great deal that do involve some degree of difficulty or suffering or discomfort, and it's important. And if that part isn't there, it actually means we're not doing it hard enough. And so I actually didn't watch that particular segment of the A Word, so I'm not sure if they're referring to something like an extinction burst or something like that.
He's just having a compliance day, where he's just having a rough day, and they're asking him to do something that he's already mastered, that he can do easily, and
and it's frustrating.
And he's a bit of a mess on this given day, and it's hard for the dad. They make the dad leave the room because he's struggling with it.
Right, and does the therapist feel bad for the kid, that the kid's frustrated and doesn't want to do the work that he needs to do? Yeah, absolutely. Are they going to show it on the outside in the moment when the kid's having misbehavior? No way, right? We try to stay neutral. We try to just say, look, here's the expectations. We'll be reasonable with them, but once we set them, we're going to follow through. And then when you're not being non-compliant or misbehaving or whatever, of course we're going to have all the empathy in the world, and of course we're going to share your experiences with you, and frankly even talk to you about how you don't like what we're doing, right? We can do that. We can have a conversation about how maybe the expectations that we're placing on you are unreasonable and make you feel frustrated. That's totally reasonable for us to discuss that, but not while you're misbehaving. That's a conversation we have before misbehavior occurs in order to prevent it, right?
And one of the great tools that the therapists have that the parents don't have is that very little bit of distance. I mean, a lot of the therapists get very involved with the family and with the kid, but they still have a little bit of distance because it's almost like the grandparent thing where when the child is freaking out, the grandparents can stay a little bit more level because the grandparents know they get to go home. And the therapists know that they get to go home. So I appreciate it as a parent, the fact that the therapists could have that, impervious thing where it appeared that they didn't care. But I will bet you dollars to donuts, because I have met this dad. He knows how much the therapists care about his kid.
Of course. I think maybe his comment was being taken a little too literally, and of course the therapists care about the kids' feelings, and of course the therapists don't like to see the kids upset. And frankly, it makes their job worse when the kid's upset. It's not like they enjoy it, right? In fact, the toughest part of being a therapist is dealing with challenging behavior and dealing with the child when they're really upset. It makes your day worse. I'm here to tell you that. I've done it plenty. It makes your day worse. It doesn't make you happy, but it's something that you do. You are trained to follow through with and act professionally, and then you deal with it later when you go home.
And can I tell you that the card therapists are so good at it that I don't think, I know that this dad already knows it, but I think it took me several years before it occurred to me that it was hard for them. I don't think I realized that in the moment because they were so, because, after I had struggled so much with my child and couldn't get him to hold my hand and walk down the sidewalk, and Peter Farrig walked in on the first day and got compliance like, crazy and made it look like it was a festival at the park. And to this day, I love and adore the ground that Peter Farrig walks on and think that, he is a hero. But there was a little part of me that was like, that was awfully easy, wasn't it? And
it must be nice for you.
Right? That was even one of the topics featured on Parenthood, on the first season of Parenthood, when they had the first therapist come to help that kid, was that the therapist got compliance fairly quickly and the mom was a little fatutz. Because it feels like, how come you could get him to do it and I can't, and what's that about? But the baggage isn't there.
It's just different. And that's why there are people whose job it is to do that job. You know what I mean? Because it's not the same as being a family member.
And it's part of the reason why we encourage parents, do skills if that's what you need to do, but try to get at least one other person on your team, whether it's a volunteer or somebody who doesn't already have the relationship. It's going to bump up your program because it does that. Their ability to have emotional distance, or at least to appear to, will be helpful to your child's program.
And the bottom line is several decades of research have shown very clearly that responding emotionally to challenging behavior in the moment doesn't help. It does make the behavior worse.
Well,
and it doesn't mean you don't care. It just means here's the type of response I can have right now when my child or my client is displaying challenging behavior.
And honestly, for parents, it's really, really difficult.
Absolutely.
And it's something that takes a great deal of time. And one of the things the dad said was, he said, I'm having one of these days when I just don't feel like I'm that good at this. It's very humbling, but it's a different circumstance when you're a parent. But in any case, but we appreciate that, that kind of got your back up, that thinking that the dad thought that I know that dad knows they care.
And it's definitely a topic worthy of discussion.
Absolutely. All right, we are going to take a short break and we're going to come back with Dr. Tarbox to address a question that came in via email about what to do with a 16-year-old who's doing quite well in school, but there's still things that we can do with that 16-year-old, and the school is being kind of lackadaisical about it because there are kids that are tougher cases, and what we can do when that's the case. So stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, Find specific activities to assess and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathon Tarbox, and we're answering your questions. And by the way, I didn't really even officially introduce you today. I didn't go through all the things that you're the head of research and development here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and the director of the Autism Research Group, a really incredible and important organization that everyone should know more about. You should visit their website. You should take their surveys, because this organization is interested in doing research that's meaningful to parents and people who are actually working with somebody on the spectrum. So all these studies that we see all the time that come out and they go, oh, we did research on whether clicking a pen 22 times can make the other person angry, right? I exaggerate slightly. Only slightly. And we look at it and we go, how much money did they spend on that study? And what use is that to my child who has autism right now? And, the Autism Research Group doesn't participate in that nonsense. They participate in research that is going to be meaningful to people working with kids on the spectrum. And that is important. You want to support them, and you want to give them your opinions about things so that it will drive their research.
That's right.
And tell them the website that they can go to do that.
www.autismresearchgroup.org.
And I will say this, that if you're like me and you get mad when you see those studies and say, why aren't they doing this? Then you need to get up right now and go pick up your iPad or your computer and write in and have a say, because somebody is asking you what you want research done on. And you don't get to complain anymore if you don't say, right? Those are the rules.
That's right.
If somebody asks you your opinion and you don't give it, and then you don't get to complain. And we'll send you the printed rules if you need them, let me know. Okay, so we had a viewer write in a question, and I think this is a really important question. She writes in that her son, who is 16 years old, on the autism spectrum, high functioning, verbal, well behaved. He knows there's something different with his brain. As a parent, I want to help, but what else can I do? He sleeps and eats well. We recently saw our neurologist, a GP, an optometrist, and looking for an endocrinologist, but wanting to know what else to do. Now, and they included a phone number. I looked at this and I said, wow, I mean, this kid's doing great, right? And I said, I'm not sure what is this parent looking for, because this is like the hit parade right here of all these things that are going. I think people with a neurotypical 16-year-old boy would be thrilled to hear, well behaved and, sleeping and eating well and kind and considerate. So I called her this morning. Awesome mom. Had a great time talking with her. Hope she's watching right now. But basically what she said was, he we'd like to see more friends,
Right.
and we want to see this child getting substantive things in school, that they really have kind of put him in a corner and aren't working on important goals with him, and that she recently found out that there's all these programs in her local school, but they didn't give her son any access to them because he's doing so
He's
well.
doing too well. Yeah.
And we hear this time and time again that, they diagnose the 5-year-old and they say, oh, he's high functioning. He doesn't need ABA.
Right.
I have a gesture for that, but it's not ladylike. You know what I mean? And then we hear this with the teenagers. Well, the teenager seems to be well adjusted and doing well, so we're not going to give them access to social skills things. It's frustrating. But so the mom is saying, what can I do now? She and I talked about some things this morning, but I said I really want to talk about this with an expert to get your take on what would you recommend for a 16-year-old, not a lot of friends,
Right.
is at a relatively new school and hasn't really connected with the other kids.
Right.
Really interested in animals. But so the school, as part of his program, has him walking a dog.
Okay.
Right? And that's it.
So, yeah, like you said, this is something that's very, very common that we see. Unfortunately, schools are sort of worried about putting out the fires. And so if your child is doing really well, particularly high functioning, has lots of skills, they're not going to be viewed as a fire, right? Unless you make it so.
And that's kind of what we talked about this morning, was that it takes us. We have to be the advocates.
But quite frankly, a lot of school districts simply don't have resources that are appropriate for kids that are not very severe. They just haven't even developed it because there hasn't been, they haven't perceived it as a need, essentially, and or parents haven't made it enough of a need. So they might not actually be, they might be perfectly honest when they say, well, we don't really have much for them. That's probably more the norm in most public school systems, is they have very little to nothing for high-functioning, very verbal teenagers,
Well, and this mom seemed to feel that there were lots of programs, that there's even, social skills and things.
Well, so it would be worth looking into those programs in more depth, and, why not ask to be able to observe one of them or to look at the program description or whatever it is, and definitely have a look. If it is appropriate for your child, then absolutely it's appropriate to ask for that, right? There's no reason why somebody else's child should get access to that instead of yours. If it is appropriate, right? But what you might find is, everybody else in that program is 4 years younger, or everyone else in that program is using an iPad to communicate. And so, which is great that they have that program, but it still might not be appropriate for your child. And
or that they have challenging behavior that is not good for your child's sensory issues.
You don't want your kid hanging around other kids exhibiting a bunch of challenging behavior, right?
Because then they might go, oh, well, this is effective. I'll try that next time, right?
Exactly.
Not to be discriminatory against those kids, but you have to consider what's best for your child and them making progress. And sometimes not being with that is going to be better for your child.
Of course.
So looking into all those things and seeing if there's something that's good fit. But if there isn't something a good fit at the school, I had certainly recommended, getting an internship or a job at this point at 16.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, he's not too young for that. You can absolutely look into that. Another option is clubs, meetups, things like that, as long as they're supervised, to make sure they're appropriate and, that there's no, creepy people running them or whatever. What was I going to say? Clubs. A lot of, you don't want to overdo the electronics and the video game stuff, but there are a lot of classes, centered around interests that a lot of kids on the spectrum have. There's a great school here in the Valley. I'm blanking on the name right now. It's Puzzle Box School. Maybe I forget exactly what it's called, but it's a computer programming school that is not specifically for kids with ASD, but a ton of kids on the spectrum go to this school and they learn basic computer programming. They learn how to make games and apps and things like that. And that's a great skill in itself to learn, and it's an interest of theirs. But much more importantly, they're hanging out with a bunch of other kids like them who are also interested, right? So it's a great opportunity to make friends too.
That interest thing.
Boy Scouts is another idea.
Oh, there you go. I hadn't thought
about
that one. We talked a little bit about, we had Torkil Sone on the show this Wednesday, and he is that Danish entrepreneur that's behind for SAP that has made a commitment that they're going to hire a certain number of individuals on the spectrum. He's helping to get them trained, and one of the things he talked about was using Lego Mindstorms to do the computer programming, and there are Lego classes all over the world. Look in your local area to find, even if they're not necessarily Lego sponsored, but Lego does do Mindstorms around the world. But even where I live, there isn't a Mindstorm group, but we recently were able to sign my son up for a Lego animation class.
Absolutely.
Very inexpensive.
My son took one of those too.
Aren't they fun?
Absolutely love
So exciting, very inexpensive.
And it is actually
and you'll find those other
skill
kids there.
that translates into something they could potentially do professionally too.
Yes.
A lot of, I mean, it's teamwork, it's being creative, it's writing scripts, it's animation, it's, so there's many aspects to it that are useful educationally and vocationally.
Yeah.
But then also the main thing is here's a bunch of other kids that are potential friendships, And
Absolutely.
of course you have to do the awkward thing where you have to go and introduce yourself to the other kids' parents and exchange email addresses and say, hey, maybe we should get the kids together. And I don't know about you, but I hate doing that. It's so awkward.
Can I admit that I now have fobbed that off on my child? That he bothers me all the time for play dates, and this weekend we're having a little get together because we're demoing some different games in Festival Toy, and so we need to try them out, and I want to invite some other kids. And I sent him off to school today, and I said, who do you want to invite? And he said, I want to invite this one and this one. I said, if you don't come home with their phone numbers, it's not happening.
Right.
So teaching him early, we're starting with asking for friends' phone numbers, so that eventually, at a certain age, he'll be able to ask for a girl's phone number.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I mean, shudder the thought that not coming.
It's got to start somewhere.
In any case, one last thing, and then we're out of time. But the person who wrote in before about asking about the emotions from the therapist wrote back and said, because there's somebody who they're wanting to train they're beginning their studies to become a therapist, and they said, this will be my biggest challenge when I work. I don't want to show any feelings to the child. What do you do to help you?
Yeah, it's really tricky, and it's not that you don't want to show any feelings, because that's not quite right either. A good ABA therapist shows tons and tons of feelings, but they're positive feelings, right? And it's about making things fun, and it's about making the kids' environment fun and motivating. And that's what ABA is about. A good ABA person is having a good time with the kid. I mean, that's the core first thing that you'll notice about a really top quality ABA person. They're having fun with the kid's having fun with them. So it's not that you can't show emotions, it's just that during periods of challenging behavior, emotions aren't helpful, right? So if you show anger to the kid, that might just provoke them more, right? Or it could frustrate them more. Or with some kids, that's actually what they want. They're trying to get you mad, right? But in any of those cases, it's not helpful, right? And of course, you don't want to show happiness to the kid when they're misbehaving and making you mad, because that's also just inappropriate and weird, right? So yeah, in those particular circumstances, you do need to kind of just not wear your emotions on your sleeves. But honestly, if you're doing therapy that works, those circumstances are the minority. You're not doing tantrums all day, every day for years. That means it's not working, right? So, I think what your viewer will find is as she gets more experience, or he or she gets more experience and gets out there and gets involved, it does start to come naturally. It is challenging for some people at first. For other people, it's the opposite. They want the most challenging, the most emotionally upsetting experiences because they keep them the most engaged and the most interested. Everyone's different, but it all works out. It's just a matter of experience and getting good training and feedback.
And I can tell you from watching therapists train, they get better at it.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that nobody's perfect about first day.
That's right.
And my child was really good at when things would happen. He learned very early on that that mom and dad responded to it very well. And we'd be in a clinic and he would say something in the middle of something that was inappropriate but very funny. And you would see all of the clipboards from the younger therapists go up like this.
Oh yeah, I still have to do that. Yeah.
Right? And the shoulders going up and down because rather than mess it up, they just made it, so that's exactly what it would look like this, right? So everybody gets to work on things. We are out of time because we have to bring in Ryan Gutterson, but I'm so thrilled to have you here
this week. It's great to be here. It's always fun.
So appreciate you so much.
No problem at all.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back with Ryan Gutterson, BCBA, talking to us about those Institute for Behavioral Trainings because we're giving some away this hour. I don't know if I mentioned that at the top of the hour. So stay tuned. We'll be back.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he? What is he doing? Is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but you know, we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yeah.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, you know, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
We're ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of the community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with Ryan Gutterson. It's his first time here on the show. Welcome to Autism Live.
Thank you so much.
And you are a BCBA.
Yes.
And you're here today to talk to us about the Institute for Behavioral Training and some of the e-learnings that are available. I know yesterday we gave away 3 different sets of 2 e-learnings, and we're doing that.
Oh, that's great.
We're doing it this hour as well. So people need to be watching for magic words on the screen and follow the rules. We'll go over them before the show is over. But I wanted Ryan to come in and talk a little bit about some of the things that are available from the Institute for Behavioral Training and how they might access them and who you might want to get them for, because we've been talking about smart gifting. So give us an idea of some of the things that we can find there. You know I'm a fan.
Oh yes, absolutely. So
Basically, the Institute is geared towards providing training materials for people from all different areas who would work with people on the autism spectrum. So we have trainings that are dedicated to to teachers who need specific support in the classroom, understanding everything from different types of assessments to different types of strategies that can be integrated easily into a classroom setting to help support kids with autism in the classroom.
Yeah.
We have e-learnings that can be accessed for BCBAs to help them basically get the CEUs that they need to continue their education and keep current with their licensing. And then one of my favorite offerings actually that we have is dedicated to parents and family members. So regardless of where you are, if you just found out that your child has autism, or if you've been working with and supporting your child for 5 years, we have a broad swath of different levels of complexity of information that you can access. And because it's e-learning, you can access it on the website. You can watch it on your own time at your convenience. They actually even provide some quizzes to help you make sure that you understand and can apply what you're learning. And yeah, we find it's really, really helpful.
And as I said, we gave away yesterday, there are different sets, there are duos of e-learnings, and we gave a total of 6 e-learnings away, and we're going to do that again in this hour.
Great.
But I wanted you to talk a little bit about, you guys have been so clever at putting together some packages, and you've put together some sort of holiday kits. So
Yeah.
tell us about what those are and who they would be good for, because we're talking about smart gifting.
Yeah, okay, so basically, we wanted to make sure that we provided something that was very family-oriented during the holiday season. We know the holidays can be a very tough time, especially when school's out. During the vacation times, I mean, you get a lot less occupied time, a lot less structured time. And I know from more than 10 years of working directly with families during that time, that can be really challenging time. So next week we're launching 2 different bundles of e-learning modules. We're calling it the Holiday Survival Kit.
Love it.
And so one of these modules is basically geared towards providing tips and strategies for parents to be able to engage their kids during the holiday season. It has information on using visual schedules to communicate expectations. It's got some basic information about how to program sort of your home and your schedule to make the holidays successful, because it's a family time and everybody should get to enjoy it, both the children and the parents as well. So that's one of the bundles. Now the other bundle is dedicated, and I love this one. It's dedicated specifically for extended family.
There we go.
Now you're a mother with a child on the spectrum.
I am.
So have you ever at some point had extended family come into the home, didn't totally understand the therapy that was happening at the time, and
or you go to their house and they don't understand what's happening, and to have to be part of the family and be the person that explains them to them sometimes is more than you can handle in a holiday structure.
Yeah.
This is why I love this, because you can gift this package to your in-laws or to your mother or your sister or whoever it is, and say, we've always said you can send a letter in advance, you can send this in advance, and have experts explain, here are some great strategies for them to understand what your child and you're going through, correct?
And that's it. That's the crux of it. We really want to help create ahead of time, if possible, that kind of increased understanding about what's going on in the home. The bundle has some information about different, fairly common strategies and practices that might not look so natural, that might not just intuitively make sense to extended family. But if they have that information, it makes it easier for you to try to get them on board and help support the contingencies and the strategies that you've put in place, so that you don't have to backpedal during the holidays. And so you don't see as much as you love them, your extended family may be reinforcing challenging behaviors by mistake, or
the person who wants to give the candy cane to your child while they're tantruming.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're shooting for, helping families avoid. And
you have to go into that lengthy discussion about why we're not rewarding the tantrum, which isn't very effective in the moment.
Not at all, because the thing's already, the situation's already taken place. And this way, if you can help your family members understand before they get there, then you have so much better a chance at navigating those situations successfully. And the one other thing I would want to mention is we did our best to put together a comprehensive bundle there that would have something for everybody, but we also do customize that. And so if, for instance, if you're a mom or a dad out there who would like to have something like this, but you feel like some of it, or maybe your family already knows some of the material, you can actually call the number on the website and we'll customize a package for you.
Okay, so these are all being launched next week, and they can find them at ibehavioraltraining.com.
That's correct. They'll go to the eLearning link on that page, and they should be able to find the bundles right away.
Remarkable. I kind of want to hug you. This is a great idea, Ryan.
We're so glad to be able to do it.
It is absolutely remarkable. And I tell you, when you go on the website, and we're going to show you a tutorial next week how to navigate the whole thing. But when you go on the website, you'll see that there are a bunch of tabs at the top. I actually have it up. I don't know if Emily can share it if my thing is mirrored. Across the top here, when you go to the website, it says e-learning, face-to-face training, BCBA supervision, and continuing education. So what you want to do is click on the e-learning.
That's right.
And then, you're also going to get these things down the side. I don't know if you guys can see it. It says direct staff, educators, parents, and practitioners. So you can click on different tabs. They're all open to you. You're not being discriminated against. You can click on whatever you want. It's just the level of jargon and the level of intensity you're going to bump up.
Well, and it's also going to be very specifically dedicated and crafted towards that audience, right? So if you want to buy a couple of e-learnings as a gift for the teacher in your classroom, you would find that under the educator link, and you can pick out specific topics there, add them to your cart, and as you process through the purchase, there's an area where you can buy it as a gift. You guys know that's what I'm giving for my gift giving for the educators in our life. I'm giving them e-learnings. It's a gift that keeps on giving, because not only are you going to ensure that this teacher is going to be working on things with your child that are important to you, but that teacher is going to learn something that they're going to give to every child who comes after your child, and that's a really good feeling to know that you've done that. And I, as a former teacher, I said this yesterday, when people put tools in your hand, if you're a teacher, you devoted your life to helping kids. And when people put tools in your hands, you appreciate it and it's helpful. So if you're thinking, oh, will they think badly of me or that I feel badly about them, trust me, teachers love this kind of thing, and it actually helps them to get promotions. If they're good at these kinds of things and they've gotten educated in something, that helps them to get promotions within the job. So give those gifts. That's what I'm doing. I can't imagine anything better than giving those. So we're essentially out of time, but you will come back next week and we'll do a tutorial and go through the whole process of how you can give the gift certificate. Absolutely. Happy to.
So we just didn't end up having enough time to do that, or we would have done that today, but I thank you so much for being with us. And
it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for working so hard on these things to make it accessible. I wish this had been around 10 years ago. We're really out of time. And so I have to address this as we go for the weekend, that on Tuesday, when we're back, it is Toy Festival, and you guys won't believe all the things that we have to give away. It is going to be a madhouse, a mayhem of toy happiness. So make sure that you're here. Tell your friends. There's no limit to how many times you can enter for how many toys. Everybody's going to be talking about it next week. My office, it looks like Christmas Santa land in there. So we're out of time, but we will be back on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I know that we have endless games that are going to be with us, and the folks from Inner Voice, this hot new app that everybody is talking about. Alex Plank will be here, and so will Matt Asner. It's a great show on Tuesday. So until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.